I'd like to call to order the July 18th, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting. Could I get a roll call, please, Brandy?
Yes. Brink.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Aletsky.
Present.
Kays.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
Here.
And we have Culhane, Dolly, and Spire are absent. We have a quorum. For the conditional uses, we'll do 4 votes in the affirmative will be a pass. And for the variance request, it will be all 5 board members here today present will have to be in the affirmative for a pass.
Okay. Thank you for that. Third item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second?
I'll make that motion.
Ford seconds.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Fourth item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 2nd meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Fifth item on the agenda is our regular agenda. 5A is board consideration of a conditional use at 201 Golf Course Road. Brandy, will you take that away, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff, and I'll just pull up the agenda here. So conditional use request here for an accessory structure for a picnic shelter. And this request is before you because the religious institution was originally granted a conditional use in the R1 single-family district. So then now that they want to have an accessory structure, it has to come back to the board for subsequent conditional use. The structure itself will be a 20 by 40 structure. And it will be located behind the existing shelter belt, and that'll stay in existence. So if you see here on the site plan, it's going to be 134 feet from the north. We did hear from the adjacent property owner, and they have no problem with this request. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you. I can see that this has very large setbacks, but what are our setbacks for a picnic shelter? I'm just curious.
So typically, if it's over 200 square feet, then it's 9 for a side yard. And then for a rear yard, it would be 25.
Okay. Thank you. We just don't get a lot of picnic shelters, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, this is what I was telling you guys about, like the whole conditional use last week too. We're going to be seeing a lot of these types of things because of how that ordinance is written. That was, just recently discovered.
Sure. So what you're saying is if this wasn't a conditional use, the original church not being a conditional use, this would be an application that would just be able to go through the normal approval process at your level?
Yep. Yep. They'd meet all the minimum ordinance requirements.
Mr. Chair, and we're looking at in the revision of code.
Yeah.
allowing us to do
I mean,
that.
there's sometimes can be value to it though, in a way. So it's something that we'll consider when we look at ordinance amendments.
Or in the end, or on the front end, if someone was going to come in and do that, if we were to pass the original conditional use where we say, and other uses that were normally customary, could we do it that way when we issue the initial conditional use permit?
We'll
Something to think
talk
about.
on, we'll talk about that on, when we're thinking about that one.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
There is a public hearing with this. I will open the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor or against this item, please feel free to approach the mic and state your name for the record.
I'm Kevin Tyson, I'm a deacon.
I'll have you come all the way to the mic, so if there's anyone online, they can hear you.
For you there, just an introduction.
Good afternoon, I'm Kevin Tyson, I'm a deacon at Watertown Christian Church. We were wanting to build this structure for mainly fellowship. We have our Sunday evening family get-togethers, but we also want to use it to help grow our enrollment at our church with people that come and visit and stuff like that. So that's really our main concerns of why we want it. But I've been a builder for 30 years, and I've built on a lot of churches, and this is kind of concerning, honestly. It kind of upsets me that we have to actually come through this process to be able to obtain a building permit for a church. Like I say, I've worked on quite a few churches. I've never had this issue ever. So it's kind of upsetting that, like I say, we have to come through this process. And the way I look at it is, you know, to be very blunt with you, if the strip club downtown wanted to build a shed for their snow removal equipment or lawnmowers or what have you, they would be able to walk in and 5 days later have a permit.
No. If I can correct you on that. So for one, you cannot have strip clubs in the city limits, but if it was probably a conditional use, so it doesn't matter if it's a church or any use that needs a conditional use up front, then anything that comes after that has to come, just straight across the board like that.
But under normal circumstances, you would have 5 days or whatever the permit process is, and you'd pull a permit. Regardless if it's a picnic shelter or an addition. Like I said, I'm not completely aware of what the conditional use, why that falls under that term. You know what I mean? So,
I think what you're falling into is what's commonly known as something that we didn't realize was there. The way it was written in the ordinance, it hasn't always been applied, but now we have to follow the rules as they are written. I think staff and this board here would be more than likely wanting to find a way so that we're just making work for work's sake in this.
Exactly.
In this specific, in my opinion. And so
Right.
I would be more than glad to look at changing the rules and having the city council change the rules so that we don't have to take the obvious and make it difficult.
right. Is this a state ordinance or a city ordinance?
City.
City ordinance.
And that's something too that, so in this situation, great, it's a large property. But think about if there was a church on a smaller lot in a residential neighborhood, and then you were putting a picnic shelter up near the side yard, and which is next to somebody's residence, where then that could be disrupting for somebody's home or their lot or property. So then that's where the conditional use is nice to look at it in this sense, because then you could say, well, you have to put a fence up, or it has to be set back this far. Because, it's creating a gathering space.
Correct.
But this situation is different because this is a very large property.
But
There's
I'll just
shelter.
take the argument on the opposite side. I'm the guy that lives next door. I put up a big picnic shelter in my backyard. I can do that without, and it'd be infringing upon the church.
Because you live in an R1 zone.
I understand that, but I'm just saying it's an apples and oranges sort of comparison. But I just think this causes us to take a look at the rules and regulations, and maybe it's not a carte blanche getting rid of that requirement, but I think on some things it makes some common sense to
Yeah.
allow normal accessory uses to be allowed, permissive.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Brandy, what is our definition of accessory structure?
So it is, basically, it's a structure accessory or incidental to the primary use.
And can it be used for anything?
Yeah, so it's actually just the structure. For what they use it, we've gotten into this before when somebody puts a shed up. I don't care if you're doing crafts in there or if you have your motorcycle, or it's just an accessory structure. Or chicken coop, whatever.
All right. And I see that we have the Cashway lumber drawing where it's called a garage. And then we have the other one, which just shows a roof with some support posts. Is it going to have sidewalls? Is it going to be open? Is it a garage or is it an accessory structure?
It's an accessory structure, just a roof and poles, just like you'd see at the zoo in town here.
And will it have a foundation?
It would have a concrete foundation for the poles, correct?
All right. And there's no plans in the future to enclose it?
Not at this time, no.
And Brandy, if they should have plans at some point to enclose it, what would that process be?
So they were just getting the conditional use for the accessory structure. So if they wanted to change it in the future, they could, because the accessory structure, so you guys are just granting the use. He then would have to meet ordinance requirements, unless you wanted to make it a condition. So, and then I'll read the definition here of accessories. Building, a subordinate building or portion of the main building, which is located on the same lot as the main building, and the use of which is clearly incidental to the use of the main building. A solar heat structure shall be considered an accessory building, and all required distances shall be measured with the structure open. Okay.
And when we list conditional uses, could you pull a section of the ordinance that requires us to be going through this process?
Yep, and I think I actually have that on your agenda packet.
I think you do, I just was easier.
So we are referencing 21-1002 2H. Okay. Okay, wow. Sorry. Could cue the hold music. All right, so this is the provision here. So all conditional uses, if a permit to construct an accessory structure is requested and such structure will be accessory to a primary structure or use previously granted a conditional use, the permit may only be issued as a conditional use by the Board of Adjustment.
And the church was issued as a conditional use.
Yep.
That's why
In the R1 district.
yeah, right.
Because the only thing that's permitted in an R1 single-family district are residential homes. So then that's just, schools, churches, any of the conditional uses in the R1s. That would all,
Everything comes back to the board.
yeah, like, we're gonna be seeing some from schools, because they want to put a shut up. So that's something to consider.
It's a trickle effect is what's going to happen, I think, in my opinion. Because yes,
And unfortunately, because it's in ordinance and we are aware of it, it has not been enforced, and that's where we've seen one of these the last 3 meetings. So now that we are aware of it, staff has to enforce it, but we are going to be looking at amendments where we can try to figure out how to word this, where we're avoiding some of these type of requests.
And to be specific, this only applies to the R1 zone part of the community. It doesn't trickle to the R2, the R3.
All of them. This
All
isn't just
zoning
R1.
all zoning districts, it applies. So any CUP issued in any zoning district, and there's an accessory use that's associated with that, we're gonna be seeing these.
Yeah.
And so that just generates so much work that 9 times out of 10 is going to be approved. I just think it's just wasteful from a time perspective,
Yeah.
not only for you, but for the applicant and for this board as well. But that's just my own opinion.
And so just to kind of segue back into this specific application, we will touch on the actual ordinance that we are applying with this in the near future. But if we get back to the, because this is what's before us. This is where we're at today.
No, it's
Chair.
good discussion, but it is necessary to have this discussion.
Yes, Dan?
So I just want to be clear, because it is a little confusing. If we approve this accessory structure use with no conditions, and they decide to put walls in, they will simply need to get a building permit and go through that process. That will not come back to us then.
Correct.
All right,
Unless they were changing the use again, but no.
okay. Well, it's so confusing, and I just think it's only fair that people understand if they take a right instead of a left, what's going to happen to them.
So basically, we're blessing the construction of this structure and any associated use that may be warranted in that structure over time just happens.
Yeah.
As long as it's permissible and commonly accessory to the main.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Incidental to the church.
Brandy, will this property have to be platted? Is that a requirement before a building permit?
With this one, it's already received building permits and it has existed this way, so, and it's an accessory structure, so there won't be a replat on this one.
Is there any other questions for the applicant? Public hearing is open. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor or against this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second from the board.
Motion to approve.
Go ahead, Rhonda. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on the agenda to 5B is board consideration of a conditional use at 3015 First Avenue Northeast. Brandy, will you take away with that one, please?
Thank you all, and God bless.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So now we are on to the conditional use for the bar tavern at the Prairie Lakes Ice Arena. That is located at 3015 First Avenue Northeast. This, the bar tavern, it's really to allow for the consumption of alcohol on premise for junior games when they have the Shamrocks play. So you have to, how we have ordinance written, because if they were a gas station and they were selling beer and it was off sale, then they would not need the conditional use for a bar tavern, and frankly, we want them to have one, because we wouldn't be reviewing it for what they're actually wanting it to be. So with this, then we have to do the bar tavern so that they can do the on-premise consumption. So with that, I'll stand by for questions.
Brandy, I know it's for the Shamrocks, ultimately, but does it have to be just that? I know, 2 months ago, Watertown hosted an adult hockey tournament, and we got, to showcase our brand new ice arena, and it was all adult teams. Would that be an opportunity to sell beer as well?
We got Dusty Rodick, the Park and Rec superintendent,
All right, and I will
Or
open the
director?
public hearing.
is here, and he can give you some details.
Good afternoon. Is this on?
No.
Okay. For right now, the intent is for the junior team Shamrock games. We would have the opportunity to look at other options. Any discussions around that, we would vet through the park board initially.
But this conditional use would allow them to have that regulation. All they need is the use, and then they'll get the license, and then however they want to regulate it is really what this action is doing.
So then the park board could regulate it however they see fit. I mean, if they said that it should be for the 8 and under games, they could sell it for the 8 and under games.
Right, at this point, the park board is an advisory
Yeah.
board to the council, so ultimately the council would have that final decision.
Okay. Yeah,
Might
exactly.
might need it to watch the 8 and under.
No, all right, thank you. I did open the public hearing. Is there any other questions? We have the park director we could ask, or is there anyone else from the crowd that wishes to speak on this item?
So this is a little different than like when we do cooking on the Compesca, and those are always, do we have to do that every time that cooking on Compesca comes to, or is that something that we've granted to that location in the past?
Why are you keep getting off subject today?
This weekend's cooking on Compesca.
Well, so we actually rewrote that in the ordinance too when we were making these changes. So that one, they can get, I believe, administratively, but not really my deal.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how we reworded that, but I do know we changed it because we did it every year for the zoo. There's that.
Safari.
Zufari, we no longer do that every year. I don't remember.
Sippin' Safari.
Sippin' Safari.
It's in Title II, so finance manages that. And basically, yeah, they don't have to come because we've done that before for the zoo. And then it's like, it's a special event. So I think it goes to council on consent ahead of the event, actually. That's what happens.
Mr. Chair. So they actually have a license then, or is,
The city does.
Yeah, so they'll do, the ice arena will apply for a malt beverage license. And then the other license, as far as I think, is just malt beverage too, for these other events, If they were doing a liquor license, they would have to do a transfer, and people can do that. A temporary transfer for a special event.
Seeing no other questions, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second from the board.
I'll make the motion to approve.
So motion and a second. There was no conditional use about 8 and under, or no, I'm just kidding. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on the agenda is 5C. It's board consideration of a variance at 1311 Fifth Avenue Southeast. Brandy, will you take it away, please?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. So this is the property at 1311 Fifth Avenue Southeast, which is where Home Oasis is located. And the applicants and owners that are also here and will be able to speak on behalf as well, they would like to demolish the current buildings and then build new, as you can see as an attachment here, a brand-new building there. Today, they have, their existing building has 11.6 feet from the east property line, which is a side yard. This property has 2 front yards because they have double frontage. And then they are 12.4 feet from the north property line. So what they're requesting with the new, so this is the existing building, and then the proposed building, they would like to do quite a bit larger to have the space and warehouse and expansion. But they would like to adhere to 15-foot side yard setbacks instead of 20-foot. And that is because if you can see here, the grade and topography really drops off. So for them to be able to still fit the building and the size that they're needing, and then also avoid, they really, I think the project wouldn't happen. Like, they need that 5 feet, and I'll let them speak to that. To be able to still get their parking area and whatnot there. The other thing, to keep in mind is that this will be an improvement, and the existing buildings currently utilizes lesser setbacks than the 15-foot for the side yard. So it's also something that in the ordinance amendments, and I'll talk to you guys more about that at Plan Commission, kind of where we're at with all of that, because that's obviously been just a lingering thing. The side yard setbacks is actually something that we've seen a lot of variances be coming through for commercial and industrial properties, where if people can utilize that space and they're still obviously able to accommodate for their drainage, which is the main purpose of a side yard, when we're 20 foot, it does take away a lot of the property that they could be utilizing, and it is quite a large area. So what we'd propose actually, and what's kind of been the trend, would be 10 or 15 actually. But again, that will be what we will discuss when we bring those amendments forward. But that's just something that we've been seeing as a trend. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Brandy, looking at their site plan, it looks like they have all of their parking on their 2 front yard in front of the building. Will they have any parking on either side, or will that be grass?
I believe that will just be grass. So they have their paved surfaces here.
And I've always thought, and I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole, but I've always thought that our setbacks should almost be looked at as how they're utilized. I mean, we do allow parking in the setbacks, and on this drawing, they're showing no parking, so it's grass. So is a 15-yard grass setback better than a 20-yard paved or 20-foot paved setback? That's the point I'm trying to get across. But there is a public hearing to this as well. I will open it, and if there's anyone that wishes to, from the audience, to speak in favor or against this item, please feel free to do so.
Hello, I'm Justin Peets, one of the owners. My wife's here too. We've been planning this for a few years, and size-wise, we are trying to maximize everything we can. We've definitely run out of space, and looking at the setbacks, we didn't realize until we actually got into this planning stage that we're going to lose space as we expand our building on 2 sides. So that's why we're asking for the variance. I'd love to have 10 feet, but I figured 15, split it in the middle. The north side and the east side that we're asking for that, right now, the north is gravel and the east is paved. I'd be more than happy to make it grass, because we don't, other than park a few vehicles there, we'll be parking on the other side when we build the new building.
Mr. Chair, I'm trying to visualize what's next door to you on the east side.
To Casino 212, he talked to us today, said he's good with everything.
Well, Mr. Chair, Justin, I think it's going to be a big improvement for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, you can see everything from Highway 212 and it just makes sense. And it's so crooked, those streets run so crooked, it's kind of hard to fit in.
Yes.
too.
And we're on a hill.
With this increase in size, do we still meet all of the parking requirements?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I have that in the staff report there. I believe they might be like too short right now, but they have room to accommodate for those.
And when they do a redevelopment of a property, do they have to provide any water quality or anything, or does it have to affect a certain acreage first?
Yep, for a detention pond, would have to have an acre of impervious surface. So with this property here, what are we at for the total square footage?
You're at a half acre or more right
Yeah,
now.
so then we're not gonna meet that.
Mr. Chair. So Justin, right now, that driveway that is on the east, you said you'd be happy to put grass there. Were you planning just to not get that destroyed, or is that going to get ripped up anyway when you're?
Everything's getting ripped up. We're gonna start
So
from scratch.
are you planning for grass on that east side then, or?
Yeah, I have no use over there. So right now, you can see there's one
Yeah,
vehicle parked
the
there.
little driveway,
So between the front and the back, nothing ever sits there. I mean, it's pavement. Which everything right now runs down the side, out to the front and down to the corner of 13th and 5th where there's a storm drain. But yeah, I can put grass there. I like grass.
And yeah, that can be something that you guys would
As a condition.
condition.
It doesn't matter to me, it doesn't really indicate what it is on your drawing, so here nor there to me, but like you said, grass is cheaper than concrete, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr.
Softens
Chair?
things up.
So has there been a water flow study done, since we're gonna have so much more impervious area on this lot, as to where exactly the water is going to go?
Yeah, so the storm sewer on 212 has been upsized, and that was done, through a study. Also, that's why that threshold is not above, or it's anything less than an acre does not impact it substantially. So then that is where they're saying that the storm sewer will be able to accommodate for that runoff. So they're gonna drain to the right of way. I do not believe, there's not storm sewer in 13th or 5th?
There's storm sewer.
I think, okay.
Yep, there's one right there.
So I think it runs in 5th. I'll just turn that on here. So that's where their water will go.
And there still will be a grass boulevard on the west side of the property.
West and south, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, as much grass as I can get.
Right.
Pavement's not cheap either. And until they finish 13th and 5th, the planning for sidewalks, we have no idea where that's gonna be at, so it's gonna be all grass all the way to where it is now until you guys decide what needs to be done for sidewalks.
And there is storm sewer all along there, so.
Is there any other questions for the applicant while I have him up here? If not, I will ask if there's anyone else from the audience that wishes to speak in favor or against this item.
I'm Leila, I'm Justin's wife, and I'm in favor.
Thank you. Seeing no other applicants, or no other people coming to be in favor or against this, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second from the board.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance as requested. The motion is made based upon the topography of the area, the cul-de-sac on the question where I don't think it has any, going to be causing any problems to have slow traffic. Even if there was water ponding on the cul-de-sac, it wouldn't be an issue moving forward. I do think I would like to attach the conditions that the grass would be planted on the north and the east side of the properties as opposed to pavement. And a waiver right to protest sidewalk when that comes.
Other than for any driveway access.
Other than driveway access, thank you.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Since there isn't, but since this is a variance instead of a conditional use, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Sounds good. Brink,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson.
I don't know. Yes.
All right. 5 yeses, 0 nos, motion passes. Sixth item on the agenda is open public comment. Is there anything not on the agenda someone wants to talk about?
Nobody signed up.
All right. Seventh item is new business. Any from you or the board?
Not for Board of Adjustment.
Okay. Any old business?
No.
All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. We